yourself fought the decadence of Gotham for years. With all your strength, all your moral authority. And the only victory you could achieve was a lie.
This film is by far Joe's favorite in the trilogy, and honestly, I was swayed too. It ends phenomenally for Nolan's vision. It's also really hard to believe that this movie is 10 years old already. This movie is the perfect wrap-up with even bigger challenges for Batman to face. Nolan continues to tell its own story while also tying in the previous two movies flawlessly. Let us know which Batman villain is your favorite. Now, let's fly right into this, spoilers and all.
Take a look. His speed, his ferocity, his training. I see the power of belief. I see the League of Shadows.
I don't think a single line has stuck with me or even shaped a trilogy in any other series the way Gordon's line at the end of Batman Begins did.
What about escalation? We start carrying semi-automatics, they buy automatics. We start wearing Kevlar, they buy armor-piercing rounds.
With each movie, we see the escalation in the aggression of humanity, especially with this one as we see it turn into a war. Once again, this movie ties into the others better than almost any other series, and I think you need to have seen the previous two to really appreciate this one. In general, this film was gloriously written to feel like the other two while also having its own strengths. There are similarities to the previous two films, but they are executed in different ways. Bane uses a machine like Crane did, and we see Crane again when Bane takes over Gotham. Raw's impact is heavy here, since Bane is from the League of Shadows, and in a way, the current leader for most of the movie. Even their plan is basically finishing what Raw started. We also see the impact from Dent as well, since they are celebrating Dent Day as a remembrance of him. The crime has also dropped significantly because of him. So much that the cops are actually complaining about what they have to do now. And even the mayor himself is planning on getting rid of Gordon at the beginning of the film. Gordon even lost his family from covering up so much for Dent. Batman even left after he broke his no-killing rule. That is, until Bane starts to become more of a problem. Bane's intro was very similar to the Joker's with how he was part of the crew in the beginning mission, and then reveals himself in a badass way. We see how Bane expects Gotham to go crazy, but a lot actually stand together with Batman. Even the use of a bomb is different. The way the past two films went made this one and this scene more intense since we believe it is actually possible that Batman won't be completely victorious. Now, this is a trope that is often used, and majority of the time, I don't care. But here, I did. It felt like Batman might be able to stop Bane, but maybe not the bomb, or the other way around. This is amplified even more when Talia reveals herself as the true villain. Amongst all of this craziness, we can't forget the people that died from the war in the city. The smaller characters all have a big impact. Then there's the twist villain of Talia, who comes at the craziest of times and gets close to winning. And mixed with the curiosity of the new feline in town, which is Catwoman. She just seriously has her claws in everything here, but ultimately just wants a clean slate to start over. Then we also have Blake, who seems to be the most morally guided of the police characters. But let's just dive right in and talk more about these characters.
Not a lot of people know what it feels like to be angry in your bones. Everybody understands. For a while. Then they want the angry little kid to do something he knows he can't do. Move on.
The character buildup in this movie is just fantastic. We see them dealing with so much now and in their past, including previous involvements with Batman. You can see the character growth was very well planned out.
I started out doing what I had to. Once you've done what you had to, they'll never let you do what you want to.
Selina was a great addition to the cast and team. She is truly a grounding character in the way that she wants to be better. You see her do some crazy and serious things on the con end of the spectrum. She kidnaps a congressman, but uses him in a smart way to make sure she doesn't get completely screwed over. We also have her more messed up moments, like when she fights with Batman and is really just delivering him to Bane. What I like is that you see other sides of her, and we see her regret for handing over Bruce. we can't help but mention her creativity and clear visibility of her intelligence. Her outfits were clearly universal in their style and had a full purpose. We see her change from a waitress to an elegant partygoer. For all you girls out there, no, our high heels do not have the strength to break a glass window, but Selina's can. Come to find out that her heels are actually a serrated knife. Not gonna lie, I want a pair. It's also a blast to see her switching between acting like a damsel and flicking on all the confidence and getting exactly what she wants. One of the best examples is when she robs Bruce. We see her fear quickly turn into confidence that she will get away. Or even when she gives Striver Bruce's fingerprints, she jumps all over and really shows her range. Goes from calm to scared to confident to absolute fear to just casually walking away. Her and her roommate friend are also pretty cool too. We see they are both small-time crooks, and Selina is just slightly better. Selina is an expert at getting what she wants and has no problem kicking some ass to get to it. She's chasing a clean slate. Even though she's good, Bruce says it best.
She's good, but the ground is shrinking beneath her feet.
You see her get more concerned for herself. She is similar to Bruce in that she eventually needs to trust other people in the end. Earlier, I mentioned that Selina is a grounded character for a cat burglar. But her finesse in fighting skills and the way she is controlling or even containing herself speaks loud volumes. She is seen as Bruce's opposite half, and it is understandable. She came from the streets and was raised by them, where clearly Bruce was not. She sees a different side of Gotham where she physically lived in pain or even starvation. She's clearly very sassy or even comical in her first interactions with an injured Bruce. She doesn't care who Bruce is, and that in a lot of ways spikes the intrigue Bruce has for her throughout the film. She brings him back to humanity.
Bruce, if you want to save the world, you have to start trusting it.
I'm trusting you.
Talia was a good twist of a villain, but I do wish we had more of her. It would have been great to see her make an impact on Bruce in a similar way that her father did. I get they wanted to stop at a trilogy, but it would have been great to have a fourth film with her as the main villain. But what we got from her was still pretty cool. She slithers her way perfectly into Bruce's life to ensure her plan. She was definitely playing for the long game if she stuck around for years, even after Bruce canceled her project. She is so insistent on her project, and she really does seem like she wants to use it for the good of the people. Talia helps everyone a good amount. She actually seems like a trusting character to everyone, and there are only a few scenes that seem odd, but don't draw enough attention to her right away. With every rewatch, you get more and more hints to her betrayal. She's a lot like her father in the way she hid in the shadows for her plan and was even willing to die for her cause as well. She also isn't afraid to call out people. She calls out Daggett in the beginning, then calls out Bruce for running into hiding after he failed. She is incredibly loyal to her father, and she clearly cared a lot about him. And we see that in the flashback. She was willing to play the long game in hope that she would finish what her father started. She worked hard to gain Bruce's trust, even better than her father had done. Bruce didn't expect her at all.
And I can't take it, the injustice. I mean, no one's ever gonna know who saved an entire city.
Blake was a great addition to the characters here. Now, before we talk about him, I need to go on a quick side tangent. So many series are making a comeback, but if they made a film of him as an established Batman and struggling, it would be phenomenal. Anyways, I digress. Let's talk about his character here. It's cool to see he's not just some trigger-happy goon. He is actually pretty smart. He is clever enough to figure out Bruce was Batman and slowly figures out Bane's plan. It's great to see that he isn't a full genius. He does mess up from time to time, like falling into Bane's trap to get all of the cops captured, or even the small one of not clearing corners.
Clear the corners, rookie.
He is great for Bats and Gordon in how he wants the city safe and wants to do it by the books. You can see the disappointment and almost disgust when he hears the truth about the Dent Act. He tries his best to be the pure good that Gotham needs, and it's understandable when he leaves the force. The people he thought were upholding peace and the laws were actually upholding lies to get what they want. Blake also has a soft spot for orphans. We see this with how he handles the death in the beginning. He talks to the guy running it, but he even takes the time to talk to the guy's little brother and try to understand what happened to them. He even talks to Bruce into figuring out why the funding had stopped. He is also very loyal. We see this when Gordon goes into the sewer. Blake is literally the only guy that is ready and willing to jump right down there with him. He even gets called a hothead, despite being rather calm about it.
We're gonna go down there, right? We know it's down there, sir, the police commissioner.
Someone get this hothead out of here.
He is also the one who is smart enough to go to an outflow to find Gordon. Blake is a great detective, and with how he is constantly finding things and calling out Bruce with zero hesitation. He does have some hothead moments, but it kind of makes sense. He says early on that he had to deal with anger and how to hide it, and you can see he still struggles with it.
What's the point? Far out there when the structures fail you, when the rules aren't weapons anymore, they're shackles, letting the bad guy get ahead.
Gordon had very discreet growth in the last movie. He slowly became what he always hated and fought against, a corrupt cop. And in this one, you really see the toll that Gotham and Gordon's quest for justice has had on him. He wanted to make Gotham better so badly that he sacrificed everything in order to have a brief time.
You betrayed everything you stood for.
One day, in that moment, I hope you have a friend like I did, to plunge their hands into the filth so that you can keep yours clean.
But in doing so, he lied about some of the most traumatizing moments for his family. So it's kind of understandable that his family left him. We also see the impact that all of that had on him. He's constantly on edge, waiting for something to go wrong, despite having his peace for years. It makes some sense that they were planning to let him go since he was having trouble adapting to the good times. But he quickly switches right back into defense mode when he discovers Bane. He is on edge for good reason, and they got peace from a loose lie. And if that thread is tugged, then it questions everything they did, which we see later between him and Blake when they debate about this. Gordon also keeping the speech on him probably wasn't the smartest move either, but it is a burden he's been holding on to for 8 years. Gordon is even questioning their victory after meeting Bane, and you see his fear as well as his reliance on Batman.
The Batman has to come back.
The debate between Gordon and Blake was also very interesting because he doesn't even apologize. Instead, he tries to justify his actions. He cares about the city and Batman, and he did what he felt was right despite going about it the wrong way. We do see his caring side like we have in past movies, but my favorite moment for him is actually the end when he realizes Batman is Bruce. Something kind he did without a second thought made such a big impact on someone. He is even the one to give the funeral talk for Bruce.
The shadows betray you because they belong to me.
Bane is the best villain in the trilogy. There, I said it. Scarecrow made Batman conquer his fear. Roz challenged his faith in Gotham. Two-Face made Batman question his beliefs. Joker broke Batman's mentality and morals. But Bane broke Batman in every way possible. He physically broke him in numerous ways.
Ah, yes! I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit? Or your body?
Look at his minions. He was smart in how he recruited. He chose people who were lost and looking for acceptance. Orphans. I also love that he didn't get his large army overnight. Batman has been gone for 8 years, and there are numerous signs showing that Bane has been working on this army for a few years at the least. The kid at the orphanage knows about the jobs and how often kids go down there. Kids washing up is a known thing for a while. Even in the beginning, Bane has a reputation already. Bane is also a great villain for one big reason: power. He does so many power moves and is literally overflowing with testosterone. Not to mention the raw strength they give him while also making him incredibly intelligent. He's almost always calm and calculated. Just look at how he fights. Every single hit has crazy power behind it and usually does as much damage as possible. And even at the end, when he goes more into a blind rage, the power gets even stronger. Not to mention, he can take the punches to continue fueling his anger. I will admit that I was skeptical about him at first, since most Bane's renditions aren't that smart, but I love that he challenges Batman not just physically, but mentally as well. This man was so mysterious that Batman found almost nothing on him. That in itself is super rare. But then you do get the more overlooked details, like him using orphans and giving them what they feel is a family, and that gives him some crazy loyalty, even to the point that some are willing to die with not even a second thought.
No! They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother.
Have we started the fire?
The fire rises.
He even took care and made sure Talia lived and kept her safe in the prison, but paid for it with his health, becoming the bodybuilder version of Vader. Then you also have the fact that he knew Bruce was Batman, and then flexed on him by showing him the arsenal. He breaks his back, cracks his skull, and is just like, hold up, I also have your tools. Even the way he puts him in the prison is crazy. He literally was planning to just make him watch his world burn as a cripple. Batman is a creature that hides in the night, but Bane is the monster that haunts it. The city is no longer Batman's. It belongs to Bane now. I remember so many debates whether Joker was right or not, but I was always confused why no one said the same about Bane. In his mind, he was cleansing Gotham, but how he went about it was the wrong part in some ways. You know, like having a nuke? He exposed that Dent failed. He exposed how corrupt Gotham was, because even when they won, they did it the wrong way. Gordon and Dent wanted justice. But when Dent turned, Batman and Gordon twisted it to have the justice they wanted. Bane exposed the lie that justice was built on and made his idea of justice. Bane also had the same type of devotion to the cause that Ra's had. He was willing to die with Gotham. There was never once a mention that Bane was planning on leaving Gotham before the nuke went off. He was just glad to see Gotham burn. Bane does everything to single out Gotham, and they all fall right into his plan so that for a short time, Gotham is his.
Alfred, Rachel died knowing that we had decided to be together. That was my life beyond the cave. I can't just move on.
I mentioned earlier about Gordon's quote from the first film, but the other one I thought of was tied heavily into Bruce's story is the "why do we fall" line.
Why do we fall, sir? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up.
Bruce had to learn once again how to get up, literally and figuratively. This is one of Bruce's biggest struggles. He struggles picking himself back up when something goes wrong. We get a broken Bruce. We see the toll having broken his rules has done to him. We also see the toll that protecting Gotham had on his body.
There is no cartilage in your knee and not much of any use in your elbows or your shoulders. Between that and the scar tissue on your kidneys,
he gets right back up for Gordon and fixes a lot of his own injuries to return for Gotham. But he gets back up for more selfish and arrogant reasons, until he gets broken by Bane. He has to rebuild his body as well as his mind. He has to learn that this time, his father is not pulling him from the pit of fear and death. Bruce needs to contain his fear of death and to live again, but fight not in anger, but to fight for the city's legacy. He learns humility, as well as coming to terms with the fact that he is aging and won't be young forever. He also has to find himself, since so much of his Bruce identity hinged on Rachel. He doesn't want to let go or move on at all, so he dives deeper into his alter ego, Batman. Batman, in a lot of ways, is Bruce's addiction. I love how Batman can be interpreted in a few ways in this film. He can be interpreted the way I mentioned, or like how Alfred mentioned. Bruce is stuck in his sorrow and is almost suicidal. I've also seen people interpret it as Bruce just getting old. But to me, the first part is more obvious. While he is older and his body has taken a toll, that isn't the driving factor for him. He is looking to Bane and his powers to be his failure and downfall. He has to learn to move on and live his life. Bane did break Bruce, and nearly did by placing him in the pit. Bane induces fear to Bruce's brain, adding that extra level of pain and lack of self-worth to truly fear death. But Bruce was able to build himself up and push past that fear. Batman comes back and uses the attention to prove to himself that he still has it, until Bane humbles him and shows him he isn't as young as he once was, and he definitely isn't as strong as Bane. Batman fights incredibly aggressively in the beginning, but at the end he becomes more like Bane and fights more methodically. Batman goes back to his calculated fighting method when he beats Bane by focusing on the mask. He also has to learn to trust others and use their skills. We see this with Catwoman and the doctors in the prison, but even with Blake as well. Catwoman teams up with him, and even the way they fight works so fluidly. The doctors give him the strength to stand up literally and figuratively. Blake really pulls his weight when the bat is gone. I do feel like Selina was a great character to really help Bruce cope with the loss of Rachel, and she was clearly successful. Bruce does make a lot of right in the end. He gives over the Batman mantle to Blake. He gets the girl. He even gives up his home to help support the orphans of the city as well. We also see how not trusting people has screwed Bruce over a lot in big and small ways, like how he scrapped so many projects to keep them out of the hands of bad people that he began losing a lot of money, and they even had to stop funding orphanages, which we know is a big soft spot for Bruce. He keeps everything for himself instead of giving others the tools they need to help themselves, and this slowly becomes a big point of contention between him and Alfred. In the end, Bruce uses the bomb to get the ending he was looking for. He leaves Batman behind and moves.
Maybe it's time we all stop trying to outsmart the truth and let it have its day.
We see Alfred in the most heartbreaking ways here, despite not being present that much. He wants Bruce to move on, and he starts by being subtle hints, a brief snap, and eventually chooses to leave him. He in many ways is trying to help him remember the lesson his dad taught him about falling. He is helpful behind the scenes, doing a bunch for Bruce, but has to draw the line in hopes that he will listen and move on and have a life. He starts by making jokes about setting him up, then turns to being blunt and telling him to move on, and finally, he leaves. You see him get more and more hurt with each moment. Honestly, we saw these progressions of discussions in the past film leading to Alfred being more blunt. We saw him burn the letter from Rachel in the last film, and he thought he was saving Bruce from hurt, but ended up making him spiral. And when the appropriate time came, he took the responsibility. Losing someone is rough, but it's understandable that Alfred is pushing Bruce since it's been 8 years, and Bruce is still spiraling in trying to get his footing in the beginning of the film. Alfred isn't afraid to call out Bruce on his BS. He does so numerous times just in the scene alone.
In your mind, perhaps there aren't many things you can't turn into a weapon.
Alfred, enough. The police weren't getting it done.
Perhaps they might have, if you hadn't made a sideshow of yourself.
Bruce tries to make excuses with Alfred, and he's just not having it. He just wants Bruce to move on from Gotham and be successful. Alfred has always been caring and loving to Bruce, and we see how much it destroys him. He says a few times that he never wanted Bruce to have this kind of life. Look at when he is telling Bruce about his vacation.
7 years I waited, hoping that you wouldn't come back. I took a holiday. I had this fantasy that I would look across the tables and I'd see you there with a wife. You wouldn't say anything to me, nor me to you, but we both know that you'd made it.
To Alfred, him making it was settling down and having a family, not even being in Gotham, being back with the Hurts. We see him knowing the consequences of leaving him. And the most heartbreaking moment is when he thinks Bruce is dead, especially after his departure, because he starts it out with,
I've sewn you up, I've set your bones, but I won't bury you. I've buried enough members of the Wayne family.
We see him breaking with each film. Look at the first film, and you can see how far the stress has pushed him.
I give a damn. Because a good man once made me responsible for what was most precious to him in the whole world.
The saddest part is throughout the film, he is telling Bruce these things and wanting him to do it. And in the moment, he doesn't blame Bruce at all. He blames himself. He failed Bruce's parents by letting Bruce die. And he failed Bruce by not staying by his side.
You trusted me. And I failed you.
Alfred isn't a butler. He's a father.
A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know the world hadn't ended.
Probably the best of the smaller details is the way this movie ties into the previous two, in so many ways. There are fun things like Scarecrow making an appearance again and being the only villain to appear in all three of the films. Then there are the bigger ones that we already talked about, like Two-Face and the League of Shadows. The way they added Robin was unique and honestly really cool. He takes a lot of traits from the other ones and is basically the main ones rolled into one. Small things like him being an orphan, him being a hothead, or even the fact that he figured out that Bruce was Batman. These were all small nods to the different Robins and a nice way to add him without having a specific one. Whenever you see a movie of this kind of scale, or even a trilogy, you expect more CGI since they can clearly afford it. It was incredible to find out that a lot of the main settings like the Batcave, Bat Bunker, Bane's lair, and even the pit were all physically created. They had numerous levels or floors, and each was created to feel for the character's personal touch or emotion in the scene. The Batcave feels organic and literally like you are in one. We also see how much his technological growth has expanded in knowledge. I mean, the floors are literally coming out of the water, while Bane's lair felt like a sewerway. And that again, lurking evil from under the ground. It feels raw with the concrete and the steel, pure strength. Lastly, the pit. It was a physically built 120-foot tall structure, and to know you are simply hanging by a cord to perform the stunts yourself induces the fear and feels overwhelmingly daunting for each move made. Honestly, it's no surprise that Christopher Nolan is a genius from his creative mind and then behind the camera. There are many shots and moments that are just fun, like Batman and Catwoman fighting their way to Bane. But we also have serious moments like when Bane snaps or even Bruce climbing his way out of the prison. Perfect example of this is the lead up to the first fight with Bane. We have the music as they fight their way to him, but once he's betrayed and has to fight him, the music physically stops. That makes you hear and feel each hit even more, especially since these were not stunt doubles and the music is their punches and groans of pain. Of course, when talking about what made this movie great, we can't ignore the music. Just like Christopher Nolan is a genius behind the camera, Hans Zimmer is a musical genius. The way the film knew when to use music also amplifies this movie even more. A perfect example of this is the scene for Bruce's funeral. Just the subtle but saddening music in the background for this heartbreaking scene. Slowly the music turns into excitement and almost motivation as the film ends. This scene is just a roller coaster of emotions, seeing Alfred blame himself and seeing Alfred then watch Bruce have the life he wanted is so satisfying. Even the little details of the characters themselves have music aligned to their character. Just like Catwoman's each move or step had a purpose, so did the music. Selina is a classy woman and wonderfully paired with the piano, where her music is somewhat playful yet chaotic, where Bane has not a choir of voices, but of a chant that is clarified as an almost ritual vocalization. It gives you the sense of encouragement with dread, and even a rising tune to go further. Creatively, a completely opposite form of classy music. We can go on and on about what made this film great. Truly we could, but we want to hear from you. What's your favorite moment from this movie? What other films do you think are great that we should talk about? Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, why not like and share our videos with others, as it is truly appreciated and shows us how much you enjoy our content. Until our next video, stay nerdy and keep binging.